There is a specific kind of silence growing in the modern living room, one that has nothing to do with loneliness and everything to do with a deliberate, rational withdrawal. You might see it in a younger brother who spends his Friday nights on Discord, or a friend who has traded the local bar for a heavy lifting session at the gym. For years, the story we told was that these men were failing, that they were broken, lazy, or socially awkward. But if you look closer, beneath the flicker of the monitor, you'll find something far more interesting. A generation of men who have looked at the social game, done the math, and decided the game simply isn't worth playing anymore. Welcome back to Inside the Mind. Today, we're exploring the sanctuary of the screen and why predictable digital worlds are winning the battle for male attention over the real-world social arena. For a long time, male identity was built around what we might call the *** grammar of existence ***, the legible roles of the builder, the protector, and the provider. These weren't just jobs. They were a scaffolding of obligation that told a man exactly who he was and where he stood every single day. That life was hard, but it was visible and measurable. You knew what you were for because the results of your labor were right there in front of you. But over the last few decades, that scaffolding has been coming down. The industries have changed, the social rules have shifted, and the terms of delivery, for what makes a man enough, keep moving without anyone calling a meeting to explain the new rules. When the rules become unclear, people don't just work harder, they panic or they disconnect. And that's what we're seeing now. To understand why a man would choose a video game or a solo hobby over a night out, you have to understand the cost-benefit calculation he's making. Think about the average Friday night out. The time cost is hours of preparation. The financial cost is $50 or $100. And the psychological cost is the constant performance required to be interesting, funny, or rugged but emotionally available. And the expected outcome? In most cases, it's nothing. A conversation that goes nowhere or a number that never texts back. Now, compare that to the sanctuary of the screen. In a digital world or a specialized hobby, you find something the modern social scene has stopped offering. Predictable reward. You put in effort at the gym, you see results, you put in hours gaming, you level up, you invest in a skill, you get better. It is a world where the rules finally make sense again. For many, the living room has become a sanctuary where the math of the problem is simple and the risks are manageable. But it isn't just about the reward, it's about the risk. For a growing number of men, walking up to a stranger in real life has started to feel like a high-stakes bet with terrible odds. This isn't just about a fear of rejection. It's about the very real possibility that a normal, polite interaction could be filmed, posted online, and judged by thousands of people without context. When a simple mistake carries the risk of reputational damage, staying home becomes more than a preference. It becomes a rational survival strategy. This withdrawal is creating what we call a *** coordination failure ***. On one side, you have women wondering where the men went, noticing that the bars are emptier and the apps are quieter. On the other side, you have men who have redirected their energy into spaces where they finally feel visible to themselves, even if they are invisible to the culture. For years, the response to male loneliness was basically, "Figure it out, buddy. Nobody owes you attention." And honestly, can you blame them for listening? They adapted. They built a life that does not depend on being chosen by anyone else to feel okay about themselves. Once a man stops needing external validation to feel real, the system loses its leverage over him. This creates a massive amount of cultural anxiety because our entire economic and social architecture, from the housing market to marriage as an institution, was built on the assumption of consistent male participation. When that participation stops being a given, the system strains. But the men opting out aren't doing it to rebel or protest. They are doing it out of indifference. A rebel still wants the system to change. A man who withdraws has simply stopped waiting for it to. However, we have to be honest about the cost of the sanctuary. Leaving the path and the scaffolding of society is a form of freedom, but freedom is heavier than the fantasy of it. When you follow the script, you never have to sit alone in a room and figure out what your life is actually for. When you exit into the sanctuary of the screen, that question is waiting for you. The real work isn't the exit. It's the construction of an interior life, a self that is authored from the inside rather than assigned by the outside. The most enduring changes in how we live rarely arrive with a shout. They grow in the quiet spaces where people stop performing for an audience that had stopped watching anyway. We are witnessing a quiet revolution of private choices that are shifting the landscape of reality. So, I want to hear from you. Have you found your own sanctuary? Or are you still trying to navigate a social game that feels like the rules are constantly changing? Leave a comment below. Let's make this a space where your voice actually belongs. If this reflection gave you a bit of tired clarity, consider subscribing as we continue to go inside the mind to find the truths that aren't being said out loud. Your story matters.